The whispering started 3 weeks after Father Thomas disappeared. I was alone in my apartment that first night, rain pelting against the windows as thunder rolled across the sky. The power had gone out hours before, leaving me with nothing but candles and shadows dancing across my walls. I've never been a religious man, not really, but I found myself desperately wishing I had taken Father Thomas's warnings more seriously. "Something's coming," he had told me, his eyes wide with a fear I'd never seen in them before. "It's using the church, Daniel. Using me." That was the last time I saw him, face gaunt, hands trembling as he pressed a small wooden cross into my palm. "Keep this with you. Always." The cross now sat on my nightstand, collecting dust. I hadn't touched it since. The first whisper was so faint I thought I'd imagined it. A gentle sigh, almost lost beneath the drumming of rain. Then it came again, slightly louder. "Daniel." I froze, the hairs on my arms standing on end. The voice wasn't coming from outside my bedroom door. It was coming from the corner of my ceiling, where the shadows seemed to pool unnaturally. "Who's there?" I called out, hating the tremor in my voice. "You know who I am, Daniel. You've always known." The voice was wrong, distorted and layered, as if several people were speaking in imperfect unison. But underneath it all, I recognized Father Thomas's gentle tenor. "Father," I whispered, my throat constricting. "Where are you?" Laughter trickled down from the ceiling like ice water. "Father Thomas is with God now, as you should be." The shadows in the corner began to move, stretching across the ceiling toward me. I scrambled out of bed, nearly knocking over the candle on my nightstand. In my panic, I grabbed the wooden cross, its edges digging into my palm. The shadow stopped, hovering just above me. "You think that will save you?" I clutched the cross tighter. "Leave me alone." "But you called to me, Daniel. All those nights you doubted, questioned, denied. All those prayers left unanswered. You invited me in." "No," I whispered, backing toward the door. "I never. The faithless make the easiest vessels. Poor Father Thomas learned that too late." The shadow pulsed, and suddenly I could see something within it, a face, contorted in agony, mouth stretched open in a silent scream. Father Thomas's face. I ran. The church was cold and empty when I arrived, soaked to the bone from the rain. The massive wooden doors had been unlocked, unusual for this time of night. Water dripped from my clothes onto the stone floor as I made my way down the central aisle. The cross clutched so tightly in my hand that splinters dug under my skin. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing. "Is anyone here?" No response, just the distant rumble of thunder and the creaking of ancient wood. I approached the altar, drawn by the soft glow of sanctuary candles. Something was wrong with them. The flames burned black, casting no light, yet somehow making the shadows deeper. On the altar lay a Bible, open to the book of Revelation. Words had been underlined in what looked like dried blood, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message from an unknown number. Look behind the altar. My hands trembling, I walked around to the back of the altar. There, hidden from the view of the congregation, was a small door I'd never noticed before. It was ajar, revealing stone steps leading down into darkness. I knew I should leave, call the police, do anything but descend those stairs. Yet something pulled me forward. A need to know what had happened to Father Thomas, to understand what was happening to me. With the cross in one hand and my phone's flashlight in the other, I began my descent. The stairs seemed to go on forever, spiraling down far deeper than the church's foundation should have allowed. The air grew colder, damper, filled with the smell of rotting earth and something else, something metallic and sweet. When I finally reached the bottom, my flashlight revealed a circular chamber hewn from bedrock. The walls were covered in symbols, some I recognized from church, others that made my eyes hurt to look at them. In the center of the room stood a stone altar, different from the one above. This one was stained dark and surrounded by black candles. On the far wall, something moved. At first, I thought it was another shadow, but as my light fell upon it, I realized it was a person, or what was left of one. Father Thomas hung suspended against the rock, arms outstretched in a mockery of crucifixion. But there were no nails, no ropes holding him in place. It was as if the rock itself had melted around his wrists and ankles, fusing with his flesh. "Father Thomas?" I whispered, taking a step forward. His head snapped up, eyes opening to reveal nothing but blackness. "Daniel," he said, but his lips didn't move. "You came, just as it said you would. What happened to you? What is this place?" "A doorway." The thing wearing Father Thomas's face replied, "Every church sits atop one. Did you never wonder why they built on holy ground? To keep things in, not out." "I don't understand. God has abandoned this place, Daniel. Abandoned all places. But something else heard our prayers. Something older. Something hungry." As he spoke, the air in the center of the room began to shimmer, like heat rising from asphalt. The shimmer took shape. First a formless mass, then something vaguely humanoid, though too tall, too thin, with too many joints. "It only wants what God promised but never delivered," Father Thomas continued. "Devotion, salvation, purpose." The shape moved toward me, and I stumbled backward, raising the cross before me like a shield. The thing paused, then let out a sound like breaking glass laughter. "That won't protect you," Father Thomas said. "Nothing will. Unless what?" I asked, desperate. "Unless you offer it something it wants more." The shape drifted closer, and for a split second, my flashlight illuminated its face, or rather faces. Dozens of them, pressed against a membrane like plastic wrap, mouths open in silent screams. Among them, I recognized the missing persons whose photos had been on the news these past months. "What does it want?" I whispered. Father Thomas smiled, his blackened eyes leaking a thick, tar-like substance. "A witness. Someone to spread the word, to bring others." The thing was almost upon me now. I could feel its cold radiating against my skin. "Join us, Daniel. Serve a God that answers." I clutched the cross tighter, feeling it dig into my palm. Blood welled around the wood, and as it touched the cross, something strange happened. The cross began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter, not with light, but with a sort of anti-shadow, pushing back the darkness. Father Thomas hissed, turning his face away. The shape retreated slightly. A memory surfaced, Father Thomas's words when he gave me the cross. "Faith isn't about the ritual, Daniel. It's about belief, about knowing in your heart that you're never truly alone in the darkness." In that moment, standing in the presence of horror, I believed. Not in the church, not in religion, but in something greater, something that existed beyond the reach of shadows. "Our Father, who art in heaven," I began, my voice shaking. The thing shrieked, a sound like metal tearing. "Hallowed be thy name." Father Thomas writhed against the wall, his flesh bubbling where it met the stone. "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." The cross in my hand grew warmer, and the blood flowing from my palm seemed to sink into the wood, staining it crimson. "Stop!" shrieked the thing with Father Thomas's voice. "You know not what you do." But I continued, each word stronger than the last, filled with a conviction I'd never felt before. As I prayed, the chamber began to tremble. Dust and small stones rained from the ceiling. The shadow thing lunged at me, but as it touched the space around the cross, it recoiled as if burned. Father Thomas screamed, a sound of pure agony that no human throat should have been able to produce. The walls of the chamber cracked, fissures spreading like spider webs through the ancient stone. The symbols carved into the rock began to bleed, dripping upward against gravity. "If you banish it, you banish your only chance at true understanding," Father Thomas gasped, his voice now his own again, pleading. "Daniel, please. I've seen beyond the veil. There's so much more than we ever imagined." I looked at him, at what remained of the kind man who had counseled me through my darkest times. "I'm sorry, Father," I whispered, "but this isn't the way." With those words, I pressed the bloodied cross against the central altar. Light erupted from the point of contact, pure, blinding light that filled the chamber, obliterating all shadow. The thing before me screamed, its form unraveling like smoke in a hurricane. The last thing I saw before the ceiling collapsed was Father Thomas's face. Human again, eyes clear, mouth forming two words. "Thank you." They found me 3 days later, buried under rubble, but miraculously unharmed. The official story is that part of the church's crypt collapsed due to water damage from the storm. They never found Father Thomas's body. No one believes my story, of course. They attribute it to trauma, oxygen deprivation, shock. Sometimes, in my darkest moments, I wonder if they're right. But then I look at the cross I still carry, now stained permanently red with my blood, and I remember. I remember the darkness, the faces trapped within it, and the light that banished it all. I'm not sure what I believe anymore. Not in the God of Sunday sermons and hymns, but I believe in something. Something that answers when you call with true faith. Something that stands against the darkness when all other lights go out. And sometimes, in my dreams, I hear Father Thomas's voice, his real voice, gentle and kind. Faith isn't about certainty, Daniel. It's about hope in the face of doubt, about light in the darkness. I keep the cross with me always now, not as a ward against evil, but as a reminder that even in our darkest hours, we are never truly alone. The whispers still come sometimes, on stormy nights when the power goes out, but I'm not afraid anymore. I answer with prayers. Dear listener, thank you for staying with me until the end of the story. Let it be a reminder to us all, even in the darkest moments, there's light. And when fear feels overwhelming, God is near. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories of faith miracles and the power of prayer in the deepest shadows of the human soul. Until next time, and may God watch over you.